Jordan Peterson gives his answer on whether or not he believes Jesus rose from the dead. On Alex O'Connor's podcast, Jordan Peterson was so pressed to give an answer. I mean, he was basically dragged kicking and screaming. If you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he talks a lot about the Bible, talks a lot about God, but in a different way. I think I know why he was dragged kicking and screaming to just giving a straight answer on whether or not Jesus rose from the dead. But let's watch the video. And again, big respect to Alex O'Connor here. He's a big atheist, a super successful channel, but he did a great job of actually forcing Jordan Peterson to answer.
I have no dog in this fight. I'm not a Christian, but I know that a lot of Christians are frustrated when they begin asking about Jesus, who's a much more physical entity, right? It's a real human being. It's someone of flesh and blood. It's someone who's physically crucified by the Romans.
It's a very different question. It's very different question.
And then is seen as a physical entity, at least according to the canonical tradition, by his disciples after he died.
Yeah.
So when somebody asks you, do you believe that that happened? And when I've seen you ask about that question, you tend to still speak in terms of the psychological and the mythological. I think the frustration is that, as you've just said, these are
I don't mind frustrating
right?
Christians in that regard either, because
if you don't know the context here, Jordan Peterson, basically, he's really big in narrativizing the Bible and kind of extracting from the Bible life lessons. He hasn't always treated the Bible like something that is literally true. In fact, he's just said, this is like basically the greatest story ever, and God is the greatest character ever. That's basically what the kind of stuff that Jordan Peterson has said. So whenever they ask him questions, they'll say, do you believe in God? And he'll say, well, it depends what you mean by believe. And so he's had hours of debates with atheists about this. So it's really hard to get a straight answer out of him because his forte is doing this. It's kind of taking the narrative out of the Bible, taking the storylines out of the Bible and making some kind of a life application. He has said before that he believes that God exists. He has said that, and what he mainly says is he lives as if God exists. But is the God of the Bible that God? Does he really think that way? And a lot of Christians really want him to answer this. I mean, they really want him to be a Christian.
The truth of the matter is, with regard to the gospel accounts, that the mythological and the historical are inextricably cross-contaminated.
Sure.
There's no pulling out the historical Jesus, right? That's a non-starter. And why that is, I don't know. It's very mysterious. It's very hard to understand, as are the, let's say, the accounts of the resurrection. Okay, so what do I think about that? Well, I think that denying the historical reality of Christ I think that's just a fool's errand.
Of course.
I don't know why anybody would bother with it.
So a man exists called Jesus. We have that much.
Now,
oh, look at that. Even Alex O'Connor admits that Jesus is a historical figure. He said, of course, it'd be ridiculous to say that a man called Jesus did not exist.
Christ, now, there's a claim that is attributed to Christ that he is the embodiment or the incarnation, the fulfillment, let's say, of the prophet and the laws.
Yes.
I think that's true. Yeah. What does that mean? Well, I think it's in the Gospel of John. I think Gospel of John closes with a statement that's something like, if all the books that were ever written were written about the gospel accounts, that wouldn't be enough books to explain what had happened.
Yeah, if all the things that Jesus did.
Yeah. And there's a truth in that. The truth is that profound religious account is bottomless. And the biblical representations are like that. There's no limit to the amount of investigation they can bear, not least because the text itself is deeply cross-referenced. So there's an innumerable number of paths through it. It's like a chessboard. And so it's inexhaustible in its interpretive space.
That's true.
So he's defending why he doesn't answer a lot of the time. Because if you don't remember, the question was, why aren't you more explicit or upfront about it? Why do you just resort back to explaining the narrative, explaining the storyline, and emphasizing it in that way? And he basically says, because these things are tied together completely, so there's room and there's space for me to do what I do. But he doesn't really say why he doesn't give straight answers in some of this stuff. He just says why he does what he does.
And that's a problem too, because it means it's also susceptible to multiple interpretations, including potentially competing interpretations.
I think a lot of people interpret Paul, for example, the earliest New Testament source, as saying that if Jesus did not literally rise from the dead, if there was not a man who stopped breathing and then started breathing again, then your faith is futile and you're still in your sins. That is, Christianity is undermined. Now, that means that, and Paul doesn't say sort of believing that that's false is really bad. He says, if you do not believe this proactively, then your faith is futile.
That's the problem I have with that.
If you don't proactively believe that yourself, then I think when a Christian asks you, do you believe in the resurrection of Jesus? Are you a Christian? I think you must be committed to saying no, at least under that interpretation of Paul. And even if you're not sure, I mean, it's fine if I say to you, do you think that a man physically rose from the dead? And you say something like, well, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, but I think it has a lot of mythological significance, or I think that maybe it happened in a different sense, or it happened in the sense that good fiction happens, then fine. But it needs to begin with that caveat of the simple sort of, historically speaking, I don't know. And I know you don't like to pull out the historical Jesus and the mythological.
That's a good objection.
But it's an important question to ask.
No, of course. It's a very good objection. So I just did a seminar on the Gospels with a crew of about 8 people. And it was the same crew that walked through Exodus with me with a couple of variations. And we spent a lot of time on the resurrection accounts, for example. And of course, that was the toughest, let's say, that was the toughest morsel to chew and digest. The thing about the resurrection accounts is that they're all, look, so I could say something like this, which will just annoy people, but it doesn't matter. I believe the accounts, but I have no idea what they mean.
When you say you believe the accounts, do you mean, and I hate to be sort of pedantic here, it seems pedantic, but
he's really trying hard to extract the actual direct answer.
Do you mean you believe that these are things that happened such that that's a strange thing. I know you don't like that. Let me put it this way.
Do you believe that they happened? And he goes, hold on. That's a strange way to put it. So now Alex O'Connor is going to have to, and again, masterful job. Clearly he knows a lot about Jordan Peterson's style. Look at how he gets Jordan Peterson to answer.
Right, if I went back in time with a Panasonic video camera and put that camera in front of the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, would the little LCD screen show a man walk out of that tomb?
I would suspect yes.
There it is.
So
there it is. It took him forever to get that answer, dude. It took him forever. Here, round of applause for Alex O'Connor. Round of applause. Oh, here, and also an air horn, because why not? Why not? Okay. It took him forever. So he says, I would suspect yes. Jordan Peterson, in a lot of these conversations, he does a lot of hedging. And what hedging is, if you don't know, is basically where in a debate, for example, and he's not necessarily debating right now, but he is talking to an atheist, someone who's going to push back on a lot of what he believes. When you're hedging, basically, you're putting a lot of qualifiers in what you are willing to admit that you believe, or in what you're willing to debate for. You'll put in a lot of qualifiers, or you won't make your full belief case. You'll give something that is still within the realm of what you believe, but it's easier to argue for. And so Jordan Peterson doesn't say, I believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead by the power of God. Instead, he says, I suspect yes. And then he also does something else to hedge where he doesn't say he believes in it. He goes, I suspect yes. But notice how he's going to say it again? That
to me seems like a belief in the historical event of the resurrection, or at least of Jesus leaving the tomb, which means that when somebody says, do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead? It doesn't seem clear to me why you're not able to just say, it would seem to me yes.
Because I have no idea what that means.
That's his reason. So why doesn't he give a straight answer? Because he says, I don't know what it means. And again, unpacking that is very interesting from Jordan Peterson's side, because I just think it's hedging on his part. He's basically saying, I don't know what the logical conclusions are of that, and I don't think he's ready to take that all the way. Now, his wife has taken it all the way. She is in all-out pursuit of Jesus. She's really trying to be in a right relationship with God. But Jordan Peterson doesn't seem like he's there, or at least he's willing to debate that or argue that. So he hedges a little bit, and he keeps himself a safe distance from severe scrutiny on this by going, and again, I don't think this is malicious, but I just think that he's not ready to go all the way with it. So he says, I believe it, but I can't argue for it, or I can't debate it because I don't know. I don't understand it fully. I don't understand what the logical conclusion of that is. I don't understand what the implications of it are, or whatever that is, or I definitely don't understand how to debate those things. So that's where I'm at. It's a weaker position, but It's way beyond like atheism, for example, and it's way beyond where he used to be. If you heard an interview with his daughter recently, they were a completely secular family. And now you have Jordan Peterson saying that if there were a camera outside the tomb, he believes that Jesus came out of that tomb. That is an amazing step at the very least. I don't know how far he will take it, but at least that's an amazing step, especially much further beyond where he used to be. But what do you think? Do you think that Jordan Peterson is where I think that he is, more or less? Do you think that he's way further away, way closer? I want to hear your thoughts about this. Again, amazing work by Alex O'Connor in Atheist, who's an incredible interviewer, and finally, kicking and screaming, extracted that information out of Jordan Peterson. It's really hard to get a straight answer out of him with things like this. Clearly, he's not super jumping at the opportunity to talk about it, but he got him to talk about it. That is awesome. All right. Well, God bless you. I will talk to you soon. See you next time. Goodbye.